Daeho Kim floated through the airlock door of Galactic Research Station Nexus 7. His feet barely touched the metal floor before he started drifting upward again. He grabbed the wall quickly to stop himself from hitting the ceiling. This was going to be harder than he thought. The station spun slowly around a blue-green planet below. Through the large windows, Daeho could see the beautiful world they were studying. But right now he had bigger problems. The artificial gravity here was much weaker than on Earth. Everything felt strange and wrong. A tall reptilian creature walked past him. Actually, it was more like floating with tiny steps. The alien had green scales and yellow eyes that looked at Daeho with amusement. This was Vextar, one of the senior researchers on the station. Daeho had read about him in the briefing files. Another clumsy human, Vextar said to his companion, a crystalline being that sparkled in the light. Look how he struggles with simple movement. The crystal alien, Quinella, made a sound like wind chimes. Daeho learned later this was how her species laughed. They are so dependent on heavy gravity, she said. How did such weak creatures ever leave their planet? Daeho tried to ignore them. He pushed off gently from the wall and attempted to walk normally down the corridor. His first step sent him floating too high. His second step was too hard, making him bounce off the floor like a rubber ball. The alien researchers watched and made more tinkling sounds. Careful, human, Vextar called out in a mocking voice. You might float away. More aliens gathered to watch. There was a group of insect-like creatures with thin legs and big eyes. They clicked their mandibles together in what Daeho guessed was laughter. A few floating jellyfish-type beings pulsed with bright colors. Even they seemed to find his struggle funny. Daeho finally made it to his assigned quarters. Inside, he found his luggage floating near the ceiling. Everything that was not tied down had drifted upward. He spent an hour just getting his things organized and secured. The next morning was worse. Daeho had to attend a staff meeting in the main conference room. He practiced walking in his quarters first, but the hallways were different. Other beings moved past him with grace and ease. They had grown up in low gravity or lived in it for years. Daeho tried to copy their movements. Small steps, gentle pushes using handholds on the walls, but his earth-trained muscles kept overcompensating. He would push too hard and shoot across the room, or step too lightly and barely move at all. When he finally reached the conference room, every alien eye was on him. He had to grab the door frame to stop himself from floating into the room too fast. His face turned red with embarrassment. Our new human colleague has arrived, announced Dr. Nixara, the meeting leader. She was from a gas giant world and looked like a small cloud with tentacles. Please take a seat wherever you can manage. More laughter from the group. Daeho tried to sit in an empty chair, but he pushed down too hard. The chair tilted back and he nearly flipped over. Vextar made a show of clapping slowly. Impressive display of human coordination, the reptilian said. Perhaps we should add padding to all surfaces for safety. The meeting continued, but Daeho could barely focus. He kept drifting slightly in his chair. When he tried to take notes, his pen floated away twice. Each time, nearby aliens snickered. After the meeting, things got worse. Word spread quickly through the station about the clumsy new human. Aliens started gathering whenever Daeho tried to move through public areas. They would watch him struggle and make comments. Look, he's bouncing again. How do they survive on their homeworld? Maybe they never learned to walk properly. Vextar seemed to enjoy this the most. He started following Daeho around, pointing out every stumble and awkward movement. The reptilian would call others over to watch whenever Daeho tried to do simple tasks. In the laboratory, Daeho tried to work on his research. But even holding test tubes was difficult. His grip was too strong for the light gravity, and liquids behaved strangely. When he tried to pour a sample, it formed floating bubbles instead of a stream. Perhaps humans should stick to heavy gravity work, suggested one of the insect researchers. This delicate research requires proper coordination. Quinella was doing her own research nearby. Unlike the others, she did not laugh as much. Sometimes Daeho caught her watching him with what seemed like curiosity instead of amusement, but she never said anything to stop the mockery. Days passed and the teasing continued. Aliens would gather in groups to watch Daeho eat in the cafeteria. His food kept floating off his fork. They watched him exercise in the gym where every movement sent him spinning or floating in unexpected directions. Vextar organized what he called entertainment sessions. Groups of aliens would sit in the recreation area and watch humans try to play simple games or sports. Daeho was not the only human on the station. but he was the newest and struggled the most. "This is better than our holographic entertainment programs," Vextar announced to a crowd one evening. "Real-time comedy from gravity-dependent species." The worst part was that Deho could not argue. He was struggling. Every movement was hard work. He felt heavy and clumsy despite the light gravity. His body had been trained for Earth's pull, and this environment felt wrong in every way. But Quinella noticed something the others missed. During a routine medical scan, she saw Deho's bone density readings. They were much higher than the database said they should be for humans. His muscle mass was also denser than expected. She checked the records again. Most human worlds were listed at 1.0 g standard gravity, but Deho's home colony was different. His planet had 1.2 g gravity, 20% stronger than normal. This meant he had grown up in conditions even heavier than standard Earth gravity. Quinella said nothing to the others, but she began to wonder. If this human was struggling so much in 0.3 g when he came from 1.2 g, what would happen if the gravity were reversed? What would aliens from 0.1 g or 0.2 g worlds do in human normal conditions? She kept this thought to herself and continued watching. Something told her that there was more to this story than anyone realized. 3 weeks after Deho's arrival, another human transport docked at the station. Hyunwoo Park stepped through the airlock with a large bag of engineering tools. Unlike Deho, Hyunwoo seemed more prepared for the low gravity. He moved slowly and carefully, but he still looked awkward compared to the native aliens. Vextar spotted the new human immediately. His yellow eyes lit up with cruel pleasure. "Another entertainment source has arrived," he announced to his gathered friends. "This one looks stronger. It should be even more amusing to watch him fail." The insect-like creatures called Keth clicked their approval. Their leader, Zorthak, was a warrior from their hive world. He had been watching the human mockery with great interest. His species prided themselves on speed and agility in zero-gravity combat. "I propose we make this more interesting," Zorthak said, his voice making a buzzing sound. "Instead of just watching them stumble around, why not create proper challenges? We can show everyone just how superior we are in our natural environment." The idea excited the other aliens. Within hours, word spread through the station. The aliens were organizing competitions between species, with humans as the main targets of amusement. Deho tried to warn Hyunwoo about what was happening. The two humans met in private in Deho's quarters. "They have been making fun of me since I got here," Deho explained. "Now they want to make it into some kind of game." Hyunwoo listened quietly. He was older than Deho, with gray hair and calm eyes. "What kind of challenges?" he asked. "I heard them talking about races in the zero-gravity chambers, also some kind of precision floating tests. They want to prove that humans are weak and clumsy. And we probably will look weak and clumsy," Hyunwoo said. "This is not our environment. We evolved in different conditions. So what do we do?" Hyunwoo was quiet for a moment. "We participate. We learn. And we ask questions." The next day, Vextar made his announcement in the main corridor. A crowd of aliens gathered to listen. "Fellow researchers and crew members," the reptilian called out, "we have decided to host interspecies physical challenges. These will demonstrate the natural abilities of different gravity-adapted species." He gestured toward Deho and Hyunwoo, who stood nearby looking uncomfortable. "Our human colleagues have agreed to participate. This will be educational for everyone." The first challenge was zero-gravity racing. The station had a large chamber that could be set to complete weightlessness. Aliens would race from one end to the other, using only their natural abilities to move through space. Zorthak went first. His insect body was perfectly designed for this. He used his 6 legs to push off walls and spin through the air like a living projectile. He crossed the chamber in just a few seconds, barely touching any surfaces. Next came one of the floating jellyfish aliens. It pulsed its bell-shaped body rhythmically, moving through the air like it was swimming through water. Very smooth and graceful. Then it was Deho's turn. He pushed off from the starting wall, but much too hard. He shot across the chamber like a missile, completely out of control. He crashed into the far wall and bounced off several times before finally stopping. The aliens watching outside the chamber made sounds of laughter and amazement. Look at that, Vextar commented loudly. Humans cannot even control their own momentum. How did such a species ever develop space travel? Hyunwoo did slightly better, but not much. He moved more carefully, but still looked clumsy compared to the aliens who had evolved for this environment. The second challenge was precision floating. Aliens had to move through a series of hoops without touching them. This required very fine control of movement in 3 dimensions. The crystalline beings excelled at this. Their bodies could shift their density somehow, making tiny adjustments to their floating ability. They flowed through the course like liquid light. When the humans tried, they knocked into nearly every hoop. Their movements were too rough and uncontrolled. The crowd of watching aliens grew larger as word spread about the entertainment. This is almost too easy, Zorthak buzzes to his companions. These humans are like newborn larvae trying to fly. But during a break between challenges, Hyunwoo approached the station's main computer terminal. He started asking questions about the station's technical capabilities. What is the maximum artificial gravity this station can generate? He asked the AI. Emergency protocols allow for up to 2.5 G in designated areas, the computer replied. What about normal operational range? Standard operations maintain 0.1 G to 0.8 G, depending on species requirements. Interesting, Hyunwoo said quietly. Daeho joined him at the terminal. What are you thinking? Daeho asked. Just gathering information, Hyunwoo replied. Can you show me the homeworld data for our competitors? The computer displayed a list. Daeho's eyes widened as he read it. Zorthak's hive world. 0.2 G gravity. Vexitar's homeworld. 0. 2 G gravity. The crystalline beings. 0.1 G gravity. The jellyfish aliens. 0.3 G gravity in their gas giant atmosphere. Most other species, between 0.1 G and 0.4 G. They are all from low-gravity worlds, Daeho whispered. Much lower than Earth. Much lower than Earth, Hyunwoo agreed. That explains why they move so well here, and why we struggle. The challenges continued for several more days. Each one was designed to showcase alien abilities in low gravity or zero gravity. The humans lost every single competition, usually by embarrassing margins. Vextar grew bolder with his mockery. He started inviting aliens from other parts of the station to come watch. Soon the challenges became daily events, with growing crowds of spectators. Perhaps we should create a special category for gravity-dependent species, he announced one day. We could call it Challenged Beings Athletics. The other aliens found this hilarious. Even some who had been neutral began joining in the laughter. But Quinella continued to watch quietly. She had been researching human physiology in her spare time. The data she found was very different from what the standard databases contained. Human bone density was much higher than expected. Their muscle fibers were denser and stronger. Their cardiovascular systems were designed for much higher pressure environments. Everything about their biology suggested they were built for conditions far more demanding than the current station environment. One evening, she approached Hyunwoo privately. I have been studying human physical data, she said, her crystal body chiming softly. Your species seems designed for much heavier conditions than most others here. Hyunwoo nodded. Earth gravity is 1 G. Most worlds represented here are much lighter. What would happen if the situation were reversed? She asked. What do you mean? What would happen if aliens from light gravity worlds had to function in Earth normal gravity? Hyunwoo smiled for the first time since arriving. That would be very interesting to find out. Quinella made a sound like crystal bells ringing. Yes, very interesting indeed. Meanwhile, Vextar was planning even more elaborate challenges. He wanted to invite aliens from other stations to come watch. The human mockery was becoming famous throughout the local sector. We should document this, he told Zorthak. Future species evaluations should include these physical capability assessments. It will help prevent unsuitable species from being assigned to important positions. Neither of them noticed Hyunwoo and Quinella having their quiet conversation nearby. And neither of them thought to ask what would happen if the gravity conditions were changed. That oversight would soon become very important. The morning transport brought unexpected news to Station Nexus 7. Captain Bora Lee would be arriving for a routine security inspection, accompanied by military attaché So Young Choi. The aliens on the station had never hosted high-ranking human military personnel before. Vextar was thrilled. More humans means more entertainment, he told his growing audience of followers. Military humans should be even more amusing. They probably think they are strong and capable. Dr. Nix Ara, the station administrator, felt less enthusiastic. She had been watching the ongoing mockery with growing concern. The gas giant native had lived long enough to know that humiliating other species rarely ended well. Perhaps we should tone down the challenges while the military inspection is happening, she suggested during the daily staff meeting. Nonsense, Vextar replied, his scales rippling with excitement. This is the perfect opportunity to demonstrate the physical limitations of human personnel. The military should know what they are working with. When the transport docked, So Young Choi stepped out first. She moved with the same awkward floating steps that all humans seem to need in the low gravity. But there was something different about her demeanor. She observed everything carefully, taking mental notes of the station layout and the species present. Captain Bora Lee followed along with 2 other human officers. They all struggled with the gravity adjustment just as expected. Within minutes, a small crowd of aliens had gathered to watch their clumsy movements. Look, even their military cannot handle simple environmental conditions, Zorthak buzzed to his companions. How do they expect to serve in mixed species operations? The inspection began in the main conference room. All senior staff members attended, along with the visiting humans. The room's gravity was set to the station standard of 0.3 G, comfortable for most alien species. Vextar could not resist making comments during the briefing. When Captain Lee asked about station capabilities, he interjected with observations about species-specific limitations and gravity dependency issues. Some personnel require significant environmental accommodations, he said, looking directly at the human officers. This can create operational challenges in standard galactic environments. So Young Choi listened to these comments without response. She took careful notes on her tablet, which kept floating slightly in the low gravity. When Vextar made a particularly cruel joke about evolutionary disadvantages, she finally spoke up. I would like to better understand the environmental conditions here, she said calmly. Station AI, please display the homeworld specifications for all personnel currently in this meeting. The large screen at the front of the room lit up with data. A table appeared showing each species and their world of origin, including gravitational specifications. The room fell silent as everyone read the information. Vextar, Saurian homeworld, 0.2 G gravity Zorthak, Keth Hive world, 0.2 G gravity Quinella, Xerion crystal world, 0.1 G gravity, Dr. Nixara, gas giant floating cities, 0.3 G gravity. Various other aliens, ranging from 0.1 G to 0.4 G, and then the human entries, Captain Bora Lee, Earth, 1.0 G gravity, So Young Choi, Earth, 1.0 G gravity, Dae Ho Kim, New Seoul Colony, 1.2 G gravity Hyunwoo Park, Earth, 1.0 G gravity. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Dr. Nixara was the first to understand the implications. Her cloud-like form shifted colors as she processed the information. This is very interesting data, she said slowly. If humans evolved in 1.0 G gravity and function normally in our 0.3 G environment, then what would happen to us in 1.0 G gravity? Finished Quinella, her crystal body chiming softly. Vextar's scales changed color, a sign of nervousness in his species. That is irrelevant. We are adapted for proper galactic standard conditions. Heavy gravity worlds are unusual and impractical. Actually, So Young said, still speaking calmly, 1.0 G is quite common for habitable worlds. Many species just avoid them because they are too challenging. She turned to address the room. I am curious about something. We have been struggling to adapt to your lighter conditions, but none of you have ever experienced heavier gravity, have you? Most of the aliens shook their heads. A few looked uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. Station AI, So Young continued, What percentage of habitable worlds in this sector have gravity between 0.8 g and 1.2 g? Approximately 34% of habitable worlds fall within that range, the computer replied. And how many of the species represented on this station come from worlds in that range? Only the humans. The room was very quiet now. Zorthak's mandibles clicked nervously. Several of the smaller aliens had moved closer together, as if seeking comfort from their companions. I think, So Young said carefully, that there may have been some misunderstanding about physical capabilities. What appears to be weakness in your environment might simply be adaptation difficulties. Hyun-woo, who had been quiet during the meeting, finally spoke up. If I may suggest something, it might be educational to reverse the conditions. We could set up a demonstration chamber with Earth-normal gravity. For what purpose? Vextar asked, though his voice had lost much of its earlier confidence. Scientific curiosity, Quinella said, her form sparkling with interest. If humans can function in 0.3 g, despite being adapted for 1.0 g, surely we could manage 0 g for a short period. It would be informative. Dr. Nixara looked uncertain. The station's emergency protocols can generate up to 2.5 g in sealed chambers, but this has never been tested with our current species mix. Just 1.0 g, So Young assured her. Nothing extreme, just standard Earth conditions. Vexitar tried to regain his composure. This is unnecessary. We have already clearly demonstrated the superior adaptation of proper galactic species. There is no need for additional comparisons. But other aliens in the room were becoming curious. The constant mockery of humans had been entertaining, but now questions were arising. If humans were really so weak, why were they able to function at all in conditions so far from their native environment? I think it would be educational, said one of the jellyfish aliens. We have learned much about human limitations. Perhaps we should learn about human normal conditions as well. Yes, agreed several others, for scientific understanding. Dr. Nixara found herself in an awkward position. As station administrator, she wanted to maintain harmony among all species, but the growing curiosity of her staff was hard to ignore. We could set up a small demonstration, she said finally. Voluntary participation only, proper safety protocols, medical monitoring for all participants. Vextar looked trapped. He had spent weeks proclaiming alien superiority and human weakness. Now he was being asked to prove it under different conditions. To refuse would look like cowardice. Very well, he said, trying to sound confident. A brief demonstration. This will simply confirm what we already know about the impracticality of heavy gravity conditions. So Young smiled for the first time since arriving. Excellent. Shall we say tomorrow morning? That gives everyone time to prepare mentally. As the meeting ended and aliens began filing out, Daeho caught up with So Young in the corridor. Are you sure about this? He asked quietly. Some of them have been really cruel. This seems like it might be dangerous for them. So Young's expression was serious. They made their choice when they decided to mock us for weeks. Now they get to learn why humans are assigned to heavy gravity worlds, and they are not. What if someone gets hurt? Medical monitoring will prevent serious injury. But yes, they are going to hurt. They are going to hurt a lot. Word of the upcoming demonstration spread quickly through the station. Aliens gathered in groups, discussing what might happen. Most were confident that the test would simply prove their superiority under any conditions. Only Quinella seemed to understand what was really about to occur. She spent the evening researching human physiology more deeply, and what she found made her crystal form dim with concern. Tomorrow was going to be very educational indeed. The demonstration chamber was packed with spectators. Nearly every off-duty alien on the station had come to watch what they expected would be another amusing display of species comparison. The chamber itself was a large sealed room normally used for emergency drills and equipment testing. Dr. Nixara floated near the control panel, her cloud-like form shifting nervously. Medical personnel from 3 different species stood ready with emergency equipment. The gravity generator hummed quietly, currently set to the station's standard 0.3 g. Before we begin, Dr. Nixara announced, I want to remind everyone that participation is voluntary. Anyone can leave the chamber at any time by requesting exit through the communication system. Vextar stood confidently in the center of the chamber, surrounded by his supporters. Zorthak buzzed with excitement, his 6 legs dancing lightly on the floor. Several crystalline beings sparkled with anticipation. The jellyfish aliens pulsed with bright colors. We are ready to demonstrate proper species adaptation, Vextar declared loudly. This will be educational for our human guests. So Young, Daeho, Hyunwoo, and Captain Bora Lee stood quietly to one side. They looked calm, almost relaxed. This confidence only amused the aliens more. Look at them, Zorthak clicked to his companions. They think they have some advantage. This will be even more entertaining than expected. Quinella positioned herself near the exit. Her research the night before had filled her with dread. She understood now what was about to happen, and she did not want to be caught in the middle when it occurred. Chamber sealed, announced the station AI. All safety protocols active. Medical monitoring engaged for all participants. Dr. Nixara's tentacles hovered over the gravity controls, increasing to 1.0 G Earth standard in 10 seconds. All participants confirm readiness. Ready, called out Vextar and his supporters. The humans simply nodded, beginning gravity increase. Now, the change was immediate and devastating. Vextar, who had been standing proudly upright, suddenly found himself crushed toward the floor. His legs, designed for 0.2 G conditions, could not support 3 times their expected load. He dropped to his knees instantly, his reptilian body slamming into the metal deck. What is happening? He gasped, struggling to breathe as his chest was compressed by the increased weight. Zorthak had it worse. His insect exoskeleton, built for minimal gravity stress, began cracking under the pressure. He collapsed completely, his 6 legs splaying out helplessly. The buzzing sounds he made changed to high-pitched distress calls. The crystalline beings simply shattered. Not completely, but their perfect formations cracked and separated as their internal structure could not handle the gravitational stress. They fell like broken glass, making crystal chime sounds of pain and confusion. The jellyfish aliens were perhaps the worst affected. Their bodies, designed to float in gas giant atmospheres, compressed under their own weight until they could barely move or breathe. Their bright colors faded to dull browns and grays as their bodies struggled to function. Outside the chamber, the watching aliens fell silent. The entertainment they had expected became a scene of obvious suffering and distress. Medical emergency protocols activated, the station AI announced. Shall I reduce gravity? Not yet, So Young said firmly. She and the other humans were standing normally, completely unaffected by the gravity change. Let's make sure everyone understands what they're seeing. While the aliens struggled and gasped on the floor, the humans began to move around the chamber casually. Daeho did a few jumping jacks, each movement completely normal and controlled. Hyunwoo dropped to the floor and did 10 push-ups without effort. Captain Bora Lee walked over to where Vextar was collapsed. The reptilian could barely lift his head to look at her. You seem to be having some difficulty, she said conversationally. Are you feeling weak? Clumsy, perhaps? Vextar could not reply. He was using all his strength just to breathe. So Young addressed the chamber and the watching aliens outside. For the past month, you have been mocking humans for struggling in 0.3 G gravity. You called us weak, evolutionarily failed, gravity-dependent. She gestured to the collapsed aliens around her. But we were functioning in 1/3 of our natural gravity. You are now experiencing 3 times your natural gravity. We maintained basic mobility and capability. You cannot even stand. Hyunwoo walked over to Zorthak, who was making desperate clicking sounds. You called us larvae. You said we moved like newborns trying to fly. How do you feel now? The insect warrior could not respond. His exoskeleton continued to crack under the pressure. Daeho moved to the center of the chamber and began doing basic exercises. He jogged in place, did lunges, even performed a cartwheel. Every movement was smooth and natural, exactly what would be normal for a human on Earth. This is what normal looks like for us, he explained to the stunned audience. This is our everyday environment. Everything you saw us struggle with, we were operating under severe physical restrictions. The aliens watching from outside began to understand. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Some looked frightened. Others appeared amazed. A few seemed to be calculating the implications for their previous mockery. Shall I demonstrate our actual physical capabilities? So Young asked the struggling aliens in the chamber. She began with simple exercises that would be impossible for any of the collapsed aliens, even in their home gravity, jumping up and down, spinning, doing handstands. Then she moved to more impressive demonstrations. She picked up one of the smaller crystalline beings, carefully to avoid causing injury, and lifted it over her head with one arm. The crystal alien weighed almost nothing in 1.0 G, but it was still a display of casual strength that amazed the watchers. Captain Bora Lee joined the demonstration. She and So Young began a mock sparring match, moving with speed and coordination that was impossible for any alien in the chamber to match. They were not showing off. They were simply moving normally for humans in Earth gravity. "Stop," wheezed Vextar from the floor. "Please, reduce the gravity. Are you admitting that you cannot handle our normal conditions?" So Young asked. "Yes," he gasped. "Yes, we cannot. We are not adapted, please. But you called us weak. You said we were failures. Surely superior beings can handle any environment." Vextar could not reply. He was barely conscious. Several of the aliens were making distress signals through the communication system. Medical readings showed dangerous stress levels across all non-human participants. Dr. Nixara finally activated the gravity reduction. "Returning to station normal," she announced. As the gravity decreased back to 0.3 G, the aliens slowly began to recover. Vextar managed to lift his head. Zorthek's breathing became less labored. The crystalline beings started to reform their broken structures, but the damage was done. Not physical damage, but psychological. Every alien in the chamber now understood exactly what had been happening for the past month. "We have been mocking beings who were operating under massive physical handicaps," Quinella said quietly, her voice carrying to everyone present. "They maintained function and capability while enduring conditions that would crush us completely." The chamber fell silent except for the gasping and recovery sounds from the aliens who had participated. So Young looked around at the watching crowd. "For 1 month you entertained yourselves by humiliating humans who were struggling in an alien environment. You organized competitions designed to showcase our difficulties. You called us weak and failed." She paused to let this sink in. "But we are not weak. We are not failed. We are operating under restrictions that would kill most of you. And even under those restrictions we maintained basic function, while you could not even stand in our normal conditions." The silence stretched uncomfortably. No alien met her eyes. "I think," Captain Bora Lee said quietly, "that some apologies are in order, and some changes in station policy regarding interspecies respect." The demonstration was over, but its effects would last much longer than anyone had expected. The news of what happened at Station Nexus 7 spread through galactic communication networks faster than anyone expected. Within 3 days, research stations, diplomatic posts, and military commands across 12 sectors had received reports about the human gravity demonstration. Elder Thrix arrived on the 4th day. The Ancient Council member came from the Galactic Authority's main headquarters, traveling in a specially equipped ship designed to accommodate his species' unique requirements. He was over 400 years old and had witnessed more interspecies conflicts than anyone wanted to count. Elder Thrix looked like a walking tree with bark-like skin and branch-shaped arms that moved slowly but deliberately. His species lived on a world with 0.05 G gravity, one of the lightest in known space. "I have come to investigate reports of impossible physical capabilities," he announced to the assembled station staff. "Also reports of species discrimination and harassment." Dr. Nixara floated nervously before the elder. Her cloud-like form kept shifting colors with stress. "The situation has been educational for all involved." "I am sure it has," Elder Thrix said dryly. "Where are the humans responsible for this demonstration?" The 4 humans stood together in the main conference room. They looked calm and respectful, but not apologetic. Elder Thrix studied them with ancient eyes that had seen too much of galactic politics. "You caused quite a disturbance," he said to them. "We responded to harassment and discrimination," Captain Bora Lee replied simply. "Our personnel were being systematically mocked and humiliated for struggling with environmental conditions outside their adaptation range. And you decided to reverse those conditions." "We provided a comparative demonstration," So Young corrected. "We showed what happens when other species experience the same challenges they had been mocking us for." Elder Thrix was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to address the alien crew members who had been involved in the mockery. "Where is the individual called Vextar?" The reptilian stepped forward reluctantly. He had not recovered well from the demonstration. His scales were still pale, and he moved carefully as if afraid the gravity might suddenly change again. "You organized entertainment sessions based on watching humans struggle with mobility," Elder Thrix stated. It was not a question. "Yes, Elder," Vextar admitted quietly, "but we did not understand. We thought they were simply inferior. You thought beings from 1.0G worlds were inferior to beings from 0.2G worlds?" Vextar had no answer for this. The logic, when stated so clearly, was obviously wrong. Elder Thrix continued his investigation by interviewing other aliens individually. The story that emerged was consistent. Weeks of organized mockery, daily entertainment sessions, deliberate humiliation of humans who were struggling to adapt to an alien environment. On the 5th day, Jin Sukhan arrived. She was a human xenopsychologist called in specifically to deal with the aftermath. Her job was to help alien crew members process what had happened. Many of the aliens were suffering from what she diagnosed as inverted inadequacy complex. They had built their self-esteem on being superior to humans, only to discover they were actually far inferior in any kind of physical comparison. "It is natural to feel confused and upset," she explained to a group therapy session. "Your worldview has been challenged by new information." Zorthak, the insect warrior, was having particular difficulty. His entire identity was based on physical prowess and combat superiority. "How can we be warriors if we cannot even stand in normal gravity conditions?" he asked. "You are warriors in your environment," Jinsuk replied patiently. "Humans would struggle to fight in 0.2G conditions just as you struggle in 1.0G conditions. The difference is that humans never claimed you were weak because of it. Some aliens adapted to the new reality better than others. Quinella, who had suspected the truth, became fascinated with human physiology and began collaborative research with Deho. "Your bone density is remarkable," she told him as they reviewed medical scans. "Your cardiovascular system is like a high-pressure industrial pump. Your muscle fibers are incredibly dense compared to ours." "That is just normal for us," Deho replied. "We evolved to survive in higher gravity. It makes us stronger and more durable, but it also means we need more energy and resources." Other aliens had trouble accepting the new information. Some simply avoided the humans entirely. A few requested transfers to other stations. But the biggest changes came in galactic policy. Elder Thrix spent 2 weeks reviewing the situation and consulting with the Galactic Authority. His final report led to major changes in how interspecies interactions were managed. Effective immediately, he announced in his final station address, "All facilities hosting multiple species must clearly post gravitational conditions for all areas. Personnel must be informed of environmental adaptations required for different species." He paused, looking directly at the aliens who had participated in the mockery. "Additionally, harassment based on species environmental adaptations is now classified as a form of discrimination, subject to formal disciplinary action. The new protocols required that any physical competitions or comparisons between species must account for environmental differences. Mock competitions under multiple gravity settings became mandatory for mixed species training. But perhaps the most important change was in the galactic database. The human entry, which had previously listed basic physical capabilities, was completely rewritten. Warning: human species adapted for 1.0G gravity conditions, may appear limited in lighter gravity, but possess exceptional physical capabilities in standard conditions. Exercise caution when making assumptions about human physical limitations. Species operates under significant restrictions in sub-1.0G environments while maintaining superior performance. Additional notes were added. Humans routinely function in conditions that would incapacitate most known species. Do not mistake adaptation struggles for weakness. Verify gravitational parameters before engaging in physical comparisons. Vextar, humbled by his experience, approached Deho on his final day before transfer to another station. I owe you an apology, he said simply. I was cruel and ignorant. Apology accepted, Deho replied. But I hope you learned something. I learned that I understood nothing about humans. I made assumptions based on incomplete information. Vextar paused. What else should I know? Deho smiled. Earth gravity is actually considered light by human standards. Our colony worlds often have 1.2 G or 1.3 G. Some mining worlds reach 1.5 G. Vextar's scales went pale. How do you survive such conditions? We adapt. We grow stronger. That is what humans do. The station gradually returned to normal operations, but the dynamic between species had changed permanently. Humans were no longer seen as weak or clumsy. Instead, they were regarded with a mixture of respect, caution, and amazement. New human arrivals no longer faced mockery. Instead, alien crew members would quietly ask about their adaptation needs and offer assistance rather than entertainment. The story spread throughout galactic space, becoming a cautionary tale about assumptions and prejudice. Training materials. For interspecies relations now included the Nexus 7 incident as a case study, and somewhere in the official records filed under Species Interaction Guidelines was a new entry that became standard throughout galactic space. Before engaging in any form of physical comparison or mockery of human capabilities, verify gravitational conditions and species adaptations. Humans may be operating under severe environmental restrictions while maintaining performance levels that exceed most species under optimal conditions. The subtitle, added by a clerk with a sense of humor, read, or Why We Now Check Gravity Before Teasing a Human. 6 months later, Deho received a message from Quinella, who had been transferred to a research position studying high-gravity world adaptations. I wanted to thank you, her message said. What happened at Nexus 7 taught me that intelligence means questioning assumptions, not confirming prejudices. My new research into extreme environment adaptations has been fascinating. I never would have considered it before meeting you. She paused. Also, I have recommended that any facility hosting humans should provide 1.0 G areas as standard accommodation. It seems only fair, given that you have been accommodating our lighter gravity needs without complaint. Deho smiled as he read the message. It had been a difficult few months, but perhaps something good had come from it after all. The galaxy was slowly learning that diversity meant more than just different appearances. It meant different capabilities, different adaptations, and different strengths. And most importantly, it meant that underestimating any species based on limited observation was a mistake that could lead to very embarrassing revelations.